Okay, so let me review the main results I proved last time in the fourth lecture. So we defined Cohen-Macaulay modules and rings. So R is always a Noetherian ring, and M a finitely generated module. The definition: M is called Cohen-Macaulay R module if its localization at all maximal ideals is Cohen-Macaulay RM module. This definition looks circular, but it is not so, because in the local case, we already defined what a module, Cohen-Macaulay module is. So if RM is a local ring, RM is local Noetherian, and M a finitely generated R module, then M is called Cohen-Macaulay if and only if the depth of M is dimension of M. And depth of M, remember, depth of M is it is the grade of maximal ideal on M, which means length of maximal M regular sequence in the maximal ideal, and dimension of M by definition is dimension of R mod the annihilator of M. And we proved that Cohen-Macaulay property is truly local in the sense that if S is a multiplicative set, S contained in R is a multiplicatively closed subset, then S inverse M is S inverse R Cohen-Macaulay module if M is Cohen-Macaulay R module. And this implies in particular that if I localize at any prime ideal, if M is Cohen-Macaulay R module, then I can localize at any prime ideal, then MP is Cohen-Macaulay RP module for all prime ideals in the support of M. Okay. If P is not in the support, that's a zero module, and zero module has infinite depth, and yeah, so that is not interesting. So we take a prime in the support of M, then MP is not equal to zero. If M is a Cohen-Macaulay R module, then this property is transferred to all localizations. Then we also proved that if X is M regular and M is Cohen-Macaulay, implies M mod XM is Cohen-Macaulay R mod XR module. Okay, so if I go mod a non-zero divisor on M, then Cohen-Macaulay property is preserved. And the converse is true when R is local. Okay, this is true if R is local. And I gave an example where this was not true when R is not local. When you go mod a non-zero divisor in a non-local ring, the dimension can reduce by more than one. But that doesn't happen if the ring is local. That was the problem. I took direct sum of two rings. One was Cohen-Macaulay and another was not Cohen-Macaulay. And non-Cohen-Macaulay ring had a higher dimension. Then that ring is not local. And when you pass to a non-zero divisor, it was a Cohen-Macaulay ring, but the ring was not Cohen-Macaulay. Okay. So you have to be careful in using this property that you can pass to a non-zero divisor and see if it is Cohen-Macaulay. Then you can conclude that M is Cohen-Macaulay provided the ring is local. Okay, and what else? What else did we prove? Yeah, we proved a important dimension property of Cohen-Macaulay rings, that if I take an arbitrary ideal in a Cohen-Macaulay ring, let me synchronize these two things. So uh, suppose R is any Cohen-Macaulay ring. If R is Cohen-Macaulay ring, not necessarily local. Okay, if R is Cohen-Macaulay ring and I is a proper ideal, then height of I plus dimension of R mod I is dimension of R. Okay. This property is not true in general. It is true for affine domains or fields, but this is also true for Cohen-Macaulay rings, for proper ideals. And another property which we proved in Cohen-Macaulay ring is that grade of an ideal is height of the ideal. Grade is always bounded above by height, but in Cohen-Macaulay rings, grade of I, which is length of maximal regular sequence inside I, is exactly equal to height of I. And later we will see that this property is actually correct. It characterizes Cohen-Macaulay rings, that the grade and the heights are equal. Okay. So this is what we did last time. We will keep using these properties. Uh, so plan for today. Okay. So today I want to prove theorems of Macaulay and Cohen. Macaulay and Cohen's theorem. So these two theorems, they are concerning what is called unmixedness property. Okay. So we say that an ideal is unmixed. Ideal I is unmixed if it has no embedded associated prime. Look at the primary decomposition, and then it has minimal associated primes and embedded associated primes. So if there are no embedded associated primes, we say the ideal is an unmixed ideal. Okay. Yeah, another concept we need is the concept of a parameter ideal or an ideal of principal class. Both terms are used, an ideal of principal class or a parameter ideal. So as you know, the Krull's theorem, Krull's altitude theorem, you have seen a proof of this in Professor Patil's lectures. Krull's altitude theorem stated that if an ideal I is generated by n elements, okay, and R is Newtonian ring, then the height of I is less equal to n. Yeah. Actually, he proved a stronger version. If you take any minimal prime, okay, if P is any minimal prime, P containing I is a minimal prime of the ideal, then height of P is less equal to n. Okay. Yeah. So if the height is exactly n, that is upper bound is achieved, then we say it's an ideal of principal class. Yeah. So if the upper bound is achieved, height of I is equal to n, then I is called, either both the terms are used in literature, parameter ideal or an ideal of principal class. Okay. So in polynomial ring, we have lots of such ideals. If I take polynomial ring over a field, and I take any subset of indeterminates, x1 up to xn, so take any subset of indeterminates, then the height of this ideal is equal to j, and it is generated by j elements. Or you can take power series ring over a field. Okay. But we will show that this property, these such ideals are in abundance, okay, and they have special properties. Okay. So yeah, so here is, let me keep this. Yeah, right. So here is the theorem of Macaulay. This is a characterization of Cohen-Macaulay rings. A Noether ring, not necessarily local. A Noether ring R is Cohen-Macaulay if and only if every ideal of principal class is unmixed. Yeah. So actually, Macaulay proved this for polynomial ring over a field. That in a polynomial ring over a field, if you take any ideal of principal class, it will have no embedded associated primes. Okay. It is so principal ideals had that property that Krull proved that. Yeah. But ideals of principal class, they are n-generated ideals of height n. And if every such ideal is unmixed, that is, it has no embedded associate prime, then and only then the ring is Cohen-Macaulay. So this is not having any reference to regular sequences or grade or anything like that. So Cohen-Macaulay rings are purely characterized by absence of embedded associated primes for ideals of principal class. Okay. So Macaulay proved this using elimination theory and a lot of computational tools, but we have developed some more advanced theory, and we'll give a short proof. Okay, we'll give a short proof of this. So first, let us assume that the ring is Cohen-Macaulay. Let R be Cohen-Macaulay, and I is an ideal of principal class. We want to show that it has no embedded associate prime. So suppose P is contained in Q, and Q is an associated prime of I, and Q is embedded. Q is embedded associated prime. So we can find this P, which is minimal prime, containing I, and this P is contained in Q. Okay, there is always a minimal prime containing I and contained in Q if Q is embedded. So P and Q are different here. Okay, that's the situation we have. Now R is Cohen-Macaulay. So by definition, when I localize at any maximal ideal, it is Cohen-Macaulay. So I have these two prime ideals, P and Q. I find a maximal ideal which contains Q, and I is contained in P. Okay, this M is a maximal ideal. Now my ring is Cohen-Macaulay, so it implies that Rm is Cohen-Macaulay. Okay, by definition, and QRM will survive in this because M contains Q and PRM and IRM. So I carry these containment relations, and prime associate primes localize. Yeah, if P is associate prime of an ideal, then when I localize, it remains associate prime of localized ideals. So PRM, and QRM, they remain associate primes of Rm over Im. Yeah. So, right. But now, you see, so I have carried over the embedded associate prime to the localization. This is contained but not equal, and they are associate primes of Im. Yeah. But now let's focus on Rm over Im. Okay. I want to claim that this ring, this is a Cohen-Macaulay ring. This is a Cohen-Macaulay local ring. Once I prove this, then I will invoke the result, which I proved in the beginning, that if you have a Cohen-Macaulay module, then it has no embedded associate prime. Okay, Cohen-Macaulay modules have no embedded associate primes. So if I prove Rm over Im is Cohen-Macaulay ring, then it has no embedded associate prime, and I will get a contradiction. Okay, so that's what we want to prove. And to see that it is Cohen-Macaulay local ring, I need to calculate the dimension and the depth of this ring. Okay, so let us first look at the dimension of Rm. Okay, Rm is Cohen-Macaulay, and I proved the result about height of I plus dimension of R mod I is dimension of R. So I apply that formula to this situation. Dimension of Rm is height of I localized at M plus dimension of Rm over Im. So therefore, dimension of this quotient ring is dimension of Rm, okay, minus height of Im. Height of Im, I was n generated ideal, its height was n. And when I localize at a maximal ideal which contains I, the height doesn't change, and therefore it is equal to n. Okay, it is equal to n, right? And this implies by an earlier result, it implies that the look at the generators of I in the local ring. This is an Rm regular sequence. Rm is Cohen-Macaulay, and I have gone mod a regular sequence. So this is also this turned out to be a regular sequence, and therefore Rm. Yeah.
Sir, is the height is not changing because I is a principal class ideal?
Yeah. Right. Height is not changing. Height of an ideal doesn't change. If the maximal ideal will contain some minimal prime of I, and every minimal prime of I has height n for an ideal of principal class.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
So those primes which attain the height of I, they are surviving. Some of them are surviving in the localization, and so height doesn't change.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
In general, the height can change.
Yes, exactly.
If it was not, if it has some minimal prime of different height, you could localize at a maximal ideal, which would contain a minimal prime of height bigger than the height of I, and it would not contain the other minimal primes.
Okay.
Yeah. But in this case, because it is an ideal of principal class, the height is not changing.
Okay.
Yeah. So the Cohen-Macaulay property gave me this formula, and this formula implies that because of the height calculation, this formula implies this one. And when I go mod n elements in a Cohen-Macaulay ring, and the dimension reduces exactly by n, then those elements form a regular sequence. This result we proved earlier. Okay, so IM is generated by regular sequence, right? And so RM over IM is Cohen-Macaulay, right? Because RM is Cohen-Macaulay, I go mod a regular sequence, it is Cohen-Macaulay ring. So RM over IM is Cohen-Macaulay ring, Cohen-Macaulay local ring. And so therefore, the associate primes of RM over IM, they are equal to minimal associate primes of this ring. Now this is a contradiction because we carried over Q containing P to R localized at M, and there was a embedded associate prime. Okay. Yeah, is this proof clear? Yeah, any doubts on this? So ideals of principal class in a Cohen-Macaulay ring cannot have embedded associate primes. Now let's show that this property actually characterizes Cohen-Macaulay rings. So suppose no ideal of principal class has an embedded associate prime. If we want to prove that the ring is Cohen-Macaulay. So that is the converse. So let every ideal of principal class of R be unmixed. Ideal of principal class be unmixed. Then I want to show that R is Cohen-Macaulay. Okay. Yeah. So to show that R is Cohen-Macaulay, I'll prove that localization at every prime ideal is Cohen-Macaulay. Yeah. Okay. So let P be any prime ideal. And suppose height of P is R. We prove that R localized at P is Cohen-Macaulay. Okay. Now dimension of R localized at P is equal to height of P, and that is equal to R. So to show that this is Cohen-Macaulay, I will construct a regular sequence of length R. Okay. So we just construct a regular sequence of length R in the maximal ideal of RP. Okay. And what are we assuming? That the ideals of principal class are unmixed. Okay. So suppose that height of P is 0. Yeah, height of P is 0. So that means P is a minimal prime containing 0 ideal. And when I localize at this minimal prime, yeah, then this is a Artin local ring. Its dimension is 0. And 0-dimensional rings are Cohen-Macaulay, trivially Cohen-Macaulay, because the dimension is 0 and every element is actually a nilpotent in the maximal ideal. So there are no non-zero divisors. So depth is also 0. So RP is Cohen-Macaulay trivially. Okay. So assume that height of P is now at least 1. Okay. So suppose height of P is 1. Okay, suppose height of P is 1, then RP is 0, RP is one dimensional. So I need to find a non-zero divisor in PRP to show that the depth is exactly 1. Yeah. So where do we find non-zero divisors? Can somebody tell me? Where are non-zero divisors located?
Outside the associated primes.
Right, outside the associated primes of the zero ideal.
Yes.
Right. Now, so look at the zero ideal, and this P is height at least, P is height 1. So it contains a minimal prime. Yeah. There is a minimal prime which is contained in P because height of P is 1. Yeah. And the zero ideal is an ideal of principal class. Do you believe that? The zero ideal is ideal of principal class. Yeah, it's height 0 and it is generated by empty set. So it's an ideal of principal class. And we are assuming that every ideal of principal class is unmixed. Of course, I have localized at P, and localization of an ideal of principal class again is an ideal of principal class. Okay, that is easy to see. So in the local ring RP, zero ideal is an ideal of principal class. Of course, I'm trying to prove that RP is Cohn-Macaulay, right? But I have zero ideal is an ideal of principal class. And so this P cannot be associated to 0, right? P is a height 1 ideal. So if it is associated to 0, it will be an embedded associated prime. Because minimal primes are always associated to the ideal. So this Q is an associate prime of 0, and this P will become embedded associate prime, but there are no embedded associate primes. So therefore, this P is not an associate prime, and therefore, I can pick an element. I can pick an element of P, which is not in the union of minimal primes. And that will say that X is a non-zero divisor. X contained in P is a non-zero divisor, and therefore when I localize, this is contained in PRP is a non-zero divisor again, and therefore the depth of RP is one dimensional, and it contains PRP contains a non-zero divisor, so depth of RP is 1, which is dimension of RP. So RP is Cohn-Macaulay. Yeah, so we proved the theorem for height P equal to 1, and this argument can be repeated. If the height was bigger than 1, we continue to do that. Okay, so suppose height of P was 2 now, or bigger than 1. Again, we have to apply induction. So suppose height of P, I'll give the argument for height when height of P is 2, and you can complete the induction. Okay, so I found an element X in P. This argument which I gave for height P equal to 1 is valid whenever height of P is bigger than 1, right? Because it will not be an associate prime of the zero ideal. So when height of P is 2, I can still select an element in P which is not in any associate prime. Okay, and then consider the ideal generated by X. This is an ideal of principal class. This is generated by a non-zero divisor by Kroll's principal ideal theorem. Ideal generated by a non-zero divisor, they have height 1. Okay, so it is a principal ideal of height 1. So it's an ideal of principal class, and so all minimal primes of X have height 1, but P is a height 2 ideal and P contains X, and so P is not associated. P is not an associated prime of R mod X. Okay, this is not an associated prime of R mod X, and so therefore there exists an element Y in P which is avoiding all the associated primes of R mod X. By prime avoidance lemma, I can select this Y in P which is avoiding all the associated primes of R mod X, and therefore XY is a regular sequence. And so therefore when I localize, this is RP regular sequence, and that says that the height of P, remember height of P was 2, so that is dimension of R localized at P, and I have found a regular sequence of length 2. You can't find regular sequence of length bigger than 2 because dimension is 2. So this dimension of RP is depth of RP, and that says that RP is Cohen-Macaulay. You can repeat this argument. If height of P was bigger than 2, you can find a regular sequence inside P of length 3 and then get the result. Okay. So you just apply induction, and this is the illustration of how to finish the inductive argument. Yeah. Any questions so far? See, it's a powerful property. What it says, that suppose I have a Noetherian local ring, and I have found a regular sequence, one regular sequence, whose length is the dimension of R. Then all ideals of principal class are unmixed ideals. Yeah. So existence of one particular type of regular sequence, one regular sequence of length equal to dimension has effect on the primary decompositions of all ideals of principal class in the local ring. That when you write the primary decomposition, you will not find any embedded associative prime. Okay, so that's Cohen-Macaulay property is giving you this nice primary decomposition. Embedded associative primes are difficult to calculate or interpret. They are sources of trouble. But in Cohen-Macaulay rings, ideals of principal class will always be unmixed. And this property characterizes, okay, this property characterizes Cohen-Macaulay rings. All right, so this is the modern version. Let me now prove the classical version of Macaulay. So Macaulay proved this for polynomial rings over a field. Macaulay's theorem. So this goes back to 1916. Okay. Let K be a field and x1, xn be indeterminates, then the polynomial ring over K is Cohen-Macaulay. Yeah. So enough to prove this for n equal to 1. Because then you just iterate. Okay, just iterate. So what we have is R is Cohen-Macaulay, and we want to show whether Rx is Cohen-Macaulay. Right? So to prove that Rx is Cohen-Macaulay, we will take a prime ideal of Rx and show that when I localize at that prime ideal, it is a Cohen-Macaulay local ring. Okay, Cohen-Macaulay property is a local property. So let P be a prime ideal. Let P be a prime ideal of Rx. okay, and take its contraction to R, and I need to look at Rx localized at P. Okay, so when I invert elements outside P, I would have also inverted elements outside Q, because Q is intersection of P with R. So this ring is also, by the transitivity of localization, I can localize at a multiplicative set and then enlarge that multiplicative set and then localize at the larger multiplicative set. This can be achieved in one shot. Okay, so I can localize at Q and then localize at P. P contains Q, so PRQ X. Okay, yeah. So I should write. So Rx. So pay attention to this. Rx localized at P can also be written as, first localize R at the contraction of P, then form the polynomial ring, and then localize at P RQ X. Yeah, this is the extent. P was a prime ideal of Rx, so I'm extending P to RQX. Okay, right? But R is Cohen-Macaulay. I mean, sorry, right? R Cohen-Macaulay implies Rx Cohen-Macaulay. That's what we need to prove. Okay, because K is Cohen-Macaulay. Yeah, K is Cohen-Macaulay. So because R is Cohen-Macaulay, RQ is Cohen-Macaulay. This ring is Cohen-Macaulay by assumption, and I need to prove that RQX is Cohen-Macaulay. Okay, so I may assume that the given ring is a local ring. Cohen-Macaulay property is a local property, and this is usually the trick that a global question is reduced to a local question. So it is enough to assume that R is a local Cohen-Macaulay ring and then prove that polynomial ring over it is Cohen-Macaulay ring. Okay, so we can assume that R is local. By this reduction, by this remark, we may assume, we can therefore, we may assume R M is Cohen-Macaulay local, and then prove that R X P is Cohen-Macaulay. Yeah. So here is my ideal P contained in Rx, and its contraction is the maximal ideal. Yeah, contained in R. Okay. So since P contracts to the maximal ideal, when I extend the maximal ideal to Rx, this is contained in P. Yeah. So to study P and Mx together, because Mx is contained in P, I may pass to the quotient ring. Then this prime ideal survives in Rx over Mx. Yeah, this prime ideal P over Mx is a prime ideal in Rx over Mx, but Rx over Mx, okay, Rx over Mx is isomorphic to R mod M X, and this is a principal ideal domain. But R mod M is a field. This is a principal ideal domain. So P mod Mx is a prime ideal in a principal ideal domain, and therefore it has only two possibilities. P mod Mx is either 0 or a maximal ideal. which means P equal to mx or P mod x is a principal ideal. Yeah, but I mean principal maximal ideal. So principal maximal ideals in PID, they are generated by irreducible polynomials. And because it is over R mod M, I can assume that the polynomial, irreducible polynomial which generates P mod mx is a monic polynomial if P mod mx is not 0. So either P equal to mx or P is generated by mx together with a monic polynomial which is irreducible mod m. This is a monic polynomial which is irreducible in this PID, R mod m x. Is this fact clear? Yeah, I took a prime ideal in Rx and it is contracting to maximal ideal, then the P has only two possibilities. Either it is mx or it is mx together with a polynomial which is monic, and its reduction mod m is irreducible polynomial in the polynomial ring over the field R mod m. Any questions on this? Remember, I'm trying to prove that Rx localized at P is Cohen-Macaulay. I have got some understanding of how P looks like, right? So there are only two cases, P equal to mx and P equal to mx together with a monic polynomial. So let's look at the first case, P equal to mx. Yeah, then Rx localized and mx. This is our ring, and I need to show that this is Cohen-Macaulay. So is this Cohen-Macaulay? That's what we need to understand. But to check whether a ring is Cohen-Macaulay, I have to calculate its depth and dimension. So let us calculate the dimension of Rx localized at mx. Yeah. What is your guess? What could be the dimension of Rx localized at mx?
1.
1.
No, sorry.
Dimension of R plus 1.
Any other answer?
Height of m plus 1.
Rx localized at extension of the maximal ideal. I'm not asking for dimension of Rx. Dimension of Rx is one more than the dimension. I'm asking for dimension of Rx when you localized at extension of maximal ideal to Rx. What is your guess? Panshri Ghosh, you have some answer?
Yes, sir. It should be height of M.
Right. Height of M is dimension of R.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
R is a local ring. So let us show that this is equal to dimension of R, not dimension of R plus 1. Okay. Yeah. So this dimension is length of, because I'm localizing at this mx is a prime ideal, you see. Mx is a prime ideal. I'm localizing Rx at this prime ideal. So this dimension is the length of a saturated chain of primes. Saturated chain of primes contained in mx, because they will lift to the localization. And any saturated chain of prime ideals with localization at mx comes from such a chain which is contained in mx. Okay. Yeah. So how do we produce a saturated chain in the prime ideal mx? So you have Rx, and here is R. I take a saturated chain of primes in R first. Suppose the dimension is D, then PD is M, and then I lift this. P0x is a prime ideal. P1x is a prime ideal. Yeah, PDX is a prime ideal, that is MX, right? And these prime ideals will contract to these. It is easy to prove that Px contraction to R is exactly P. Do you believe that? Px contraction to R is exactly P, because Px consists of polynomials whose coefficients are in P. So I look at those elements of R which are in Px, they are exactly elements of P. Or you can say, okay, this is a flat, Rx is a free R module, it's a flat module, and when you extend an ideal to flat, a ring which is flat, then it will come back. Contraction will be the same ideal. Okay. And these are strict containments. These containments are strict containments, because there will be an element in P1 which is not in P0, and that will show up in P1x which is not in P0x. So this is a saturated chain of prime ideals of length d in Rx. So therefore dimension of Rx localized at Mx is bigger or equal to dimension of R. Right? I have produced one saturated chain of length d. There may be other saturated chain of length bigger than d. Yeah. Now I want to show that it cannot exceed dimension of R. This cannot exceed dimension of R. How to show that? Can anybody guess how we are going to show that this dimension is at most the dimension of R?
X is actually contained in PD comma X. So that would be a chain of prime ideal of length d plus 1.
Yeah.
So the height of PDX cannot be more than d. Otherwise, dimension of Rx would be more than d plus 1.
But we don't know whether prime ideals in Rx are extended from R. No?
Yeah, means I am saying that I have already get a chain of length d for PDX. Now, since PDX is contained in PD comma X, so this is a chain of length t plus 1.
Right.
Now, if PD has height of PD is more than d, then we would have height of PD comma X more than d plus 1. That is
Right.
not possible.
Right. That's the argument. Yeah. So that shows that PDX has height exactly d. Right. Height of PDX is exactly d, and I am localizing at mx. So dimension of Rx localized at mx is exactly dimension of R. Okay. So this PDX, what Pranshi said, that this PDX is contained in PD comma X, and that is a prime ideal. That is a prime ideal. So PDX has height bigger than d, then in Rx I will get a chain of prime ideals, saturated chain of prime ideals of length bigger than d plus 1. But that is not the case, because dimension of Rx is dimension of R plus 1 when R is a Noetherian ring. Okay. So that says that, so I have proved that this dimension of Rx localized at Mx is dimension of R. And so to prove that it is Cohn-Macaulay, what else should I do now? What else should we prove? Abdul Hanan?
No?
What else should I prove now to prove that Rx localized at Mx is Cohn-Macaulay?
The depth is also equal to dimension of.
So I must construct a regular sequence in Rx which is contained in Mx, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Where is it going to come from? Suppose you take a regular sequence in R and think of it as a sequence in Rx. Is it regular? Is it regular?
Yes, sir.
Why is that? So x1 up to xd contained in M is R regular sequence, implies it is Rx regular. Remember, there was an exercise. There was an exercise about flat regular sequences and flat extension. Rx is a free R module. Rx is a free R module.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
So when you go to free module, regular sequence remains regular
Yes.
because
Yeah, we can also show it is injective.
right. Injective maps are preserved by flat extensions. So an Rx over R is a flat extension. So this sequence which is regular in R remains regular in Rx. It's
Yes.
a free module.
Yes.
Yeah. And it is contained in MX.
Hmm.
X1 up to XD is contained in MX, is an Rx regular sequence. Rx sequence. So when I localize, it remains Rx regular sequence. This is Rx localized at MX sequence. So therefore, depth of Rx localized at MX is bigger than equal to D. Okay, but depth is at most the dimension. So we have equality. So depth of Rx localized at MX is equal to dimension of R, Rx localized at MX, and that says that Rx localized at MX is Cohen-Macaulay. Yeah. Yeah. Now what else should we prove to complete the theorem, to complete the proof? Which case is left? Diksha Garg. Diksha Garg, are you around?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So what remains to be proved? Have we finished the proof?
That MX is Cohen-Macaulay. We need
Which case is left?
localization at any maximal ideal is Cohen-Macaulay. We need that. But
Yeah, but P, I wanted to show Rx localized at P is Cohen-Macaulay, right?
yes, sir.
But I proved only a special case when P is equal to MX.
Yes, sir.
What is the other case?
But if MX is contained in P,
Strictly
properly,
contained in P, then we know the structure of P, right?
yes, MX comma FX.
Yeah,
FX
it is MX M comma FX.
yes.
Now suppose it is of this kind, where fx is monic. This is enough. Okay. Let us show now this x1 up to xd belonging to M is R regular sequence. It is also an Rx regular sequence.
Yes, sir.
But now you see height of P is, what is the height of P in this case? Height of P in this case. Height of MX is D, right?
Yes, sir.
Now I put one monic polynomial in P, then height cannot exceed D plus 1, right? Because
Yes, sir.
dimension of Rx is D plus 1.
Yes, sir.
So it
It's
is
less than
exactly
equal
D. It is exactly D. D plus 1.
to D plus 1.
Height of P is now D plus 1. And I am trying to show that PRP has a regular sequence of length D plus 1.
Yes.
So this is the candidate, x1 up to xd and fx.
FX.
So this is a regular sequence This is an Rx regular sequence. Yeah. So x1 up to xd is a regular sequence in Rx because Rx is flat over R. To show that this is a regular sequence, I have to go mod this x1 up to xd and check that fx is regular on the screen, right?
Yes, yes.
So is fx Rx over x1 xd Rx regular? Can fx be killed by something? No, in Rx over x1 up to xd Rx. Why fx is a non-zero divisor on this quotient ring? Jeba Singh. Pardon? No, I didn't get what property you are referring to. I want to show fx is a non-zero divisor in Rx over x1 up to xd Rx. To show that x1 up to xd, fx is a regular sequence in Rx, I have to go mod x1 up to xd and check whether fx is a non-zero divisor.
Sir, fx is monic, so the leading coefficient is a unit.
Right. It can't be killed. It cannot be killed. Yeah. So monic property is telling me that it is a regular element on this quotient ring. Okay. Okay. Good. Good, Niklesh. So this is monic. This is monic. And this implies this. It is a regular sequence. So now I have this regular sequence in Rx, but I wanted to produce a regular sequence in PRP. So you just localize at P. So x1 over 1, xd over 1, and fx over 1 is PRP regular. It's PRP regular. And therefore, depth of Rx for P is d plus 1, which is dimension of Rx localized at P. And therefore, Rx localized at P is Cohen-Macaulay. Yeah, so we have proved that if R is a Cohen-Macaulay ring, then polynomial ring over R is Cohen-Macaulay. And so now you apply this to a field. A field is a Cohen-Macaulay ring, and therefore polynomial ring over a field, infinitely many variables, is a Cohen-Macaulay ring. And now you can invoke the unmixedness property. In any Cohen-Macaulay ring, ideals of principal class are unmixed, and therefore in a polynomial ring over a field, any ideal of principal class is unmixed. This is exactly Macaulay's theorem. And that's why these rings are named as Cohen-Macaulay rings. Yeah, any doubt? Any doubt in this proof? So we have proved this corollary that if K is a field and x1 up to xn are indeterminates, then this is a Cohen-Macaulay ring. Yeah. Last time we proved that any regular local ring is Cohen-Macaulay. Actually, it's a Cohen-Macaulay integral domain. Okay. And Professor Sengupta will prove that if I take a regular ring, regular rings are those so that when you localize at any prime ideal, any maximal ideal, they are regular local rings. He will prove that regular local rings, if I localize a regular ring at a regular local ring at a prime ideal, it is again a regular local ring. Okay. So, and regular local rings are Cohen-Macaulay, so regular rings are also Cohen-Macaulay. Yeah. So polynomial ring over a field are Cohen-Macaulay, and regular rings are also Cohen-Macaulay. Okay. This is a kind of running theme in commutative algebra, that you find a purely ring theoretic property of polynomial ring over a field by some easy computation, because we can do computation with polynomials. Yeah. Then ask whether the same thing is true for regular rings or regular local rings, and answer is often true. It turns out to be true in many situations, and the abstract theorems for regular local rings are much more difficult. Okay. So this is a running theme. You prove first some property of polynomial ring by computation and ask whether the same thing is true for regular rings. So Cohen-Macaulay property, for example, is a common property between polynomial ring over a field and regular rings. All right. So once you prove it for polynomial ring, can you ask a question? Yeah. You can ask whether power series, instead of polynomial ring, I take power series. Whether this is Cohen-Macaulay. Is power series ring Cohen-Macaulay if R is Cohen-Macaulay? Yeah. So this is true, and proof is much simpler. I will just leave it as a reading exercise. This is true. Okay. This is true. And proof is not very difficult. I'll leave it as a reading exercise because I want to do an important theorem called the Auslander-Buxbaum formula in the remaining time. So let me do that. This is one of the most important formulas in the theory of Cohen-Macaulay rings and regular rings. This is called the Auslander-Buxbaum formula. Yeah. So it gives a formula for depth of a module, assuming that it has finite projective dimension. And it is for local rings. It can be proved for graded ring also. So suppose Rm is Noetherian local ring. And M a finitely generated R module, and its projective dimension is finite, then the projective dimension plus depth is equal to depth of R. Yeah, so you pause for a minute and see what it is saying. The right hand side is depth of R, right? It is not dependent on the module. The left hand side says any module. So depth and the projective dimension, they are complementary. They add up to depth of R. So if depth is large, projective dimension will be small. Yeah. So modules with small projective dimensions are easy to understand. Okay. So that's why Cohen-Macaulay modules are the easiest to understand, because they have the maximum depth possible. So they will have smallest projective dimension. So they are not so complicated in comparison to arbitrary modules. Okay, if depth is small, project dimension is very large. Okay, it is, but it will not exceed depth of R, because it adds up to depth of R. The projective dimension and depth, they add up to depth of R. Okay, so it gives an upper bound on the projective dimension. that if you take a minimal free resolution of the module by assumption here as finite projective dimension. So there is a minimal free resolution of finite length, and it says that there is a upper bound on the length of the minimal free resolution, and the upper bound is always depth of R. Okay. Later on, we will prove that if you had a finitely generated module of finite injective dimension rather than projective dimension, then the injective dimension is not only less, but actually it is equal to depth of R. Okay. Yeah, this is coming up when in the lectures on Gorenstein rings, that modules of finite injective dimension have all same injective dimension, namely depth of R, unlike modules of finite projective dimension. So that can be anywhere between 0 up to depth of R. Okay, because it adds up depth and projective dimension, they add up to depth of R. Okay, so there are many proofs of this. I have picked up the shortest proof for you. So there are 3 numbers here, and it's not clear which number we pick up to apply induction, and that's where the proofs differ. Okay, all these 3 numbers are finite. So one could, in principle, say apply induction on one of them and then finish the proof. But one of the simplest proof is that which applies induction on depth of R. Okay, so we apply induction on depth of R. So you begin with depth of R equal to 0, because R could be an Artinian ring, you see. Artinian rings have depth 0. So depth of R is 0. Then you see, I have to prove that depth of M is 0 and projective dimension of M is also 0 to prove this formula. Okay. Once I prove projective dimension of M is 0, do you see that it will automatically imply that depth of M is 0? Do you see that? Manav, do you see if projective dimension is 0, then depth of M is also 0?
No.
What does it mean to say projective dimension is 0?
That M is projective.
Right, or free, right? M is finitely
It's a local ring, yeah, so free.
Yeah, M is finitely generated, so it is a free module of finite rank.
Yes.
So then what is its depth? Free module of finite rank, what is its depth? Depth of R is 0.
Okay, then depth is 0.
Yeah, depth of the free module is also 0. You just apply the depth lemma, right? Apply induction on the rank and apply the depth lemma to see that the depth of the finitely generated free module over a ring has same depth as depth of R.
Yes.
So the thing to prove here is that if depth of R is 0, then projective dimension of M is 0. Right? Then that would have finished the proof in this case. Yeah. So we will prove that if depth of R is 0, then projective dimension of M is 0. So suppose it is not. Suppose depth of M, the projective dimension of M is positive. Suppose projective dimension is positive. Yeah. So it means that I have a free resolution of certain length. There's a free resolution of certain length where G is the projective dimension. There's a minimal free resolution of M, and suppose the project dimension is equal to G, and G is positive, then I have these free modules and this exact sequence. Yeah. Okay. So what can I do? I can truncate this. I can truncate this and right here take the kernel of this phi1 map. So there's a free module here. There's a map here. Take the co-kernel and take the image of phi1, which is a submodule of this free module F0, and look at this exact sequence. Okay. Look at this exact sequence. Yeah, L may not be free. Okay. Okay. I have to look at the end of the sequence. Look at the end of the sequence. So take the last map. Sorry, take the last map, Fg minus 1, and take the co-kernel. Take the co-kernel. Call this as L. So if I have projective module, I have a module of finite projective dimension, then I look at the last map in this free resolution and take the co-kernel of phi g, call that as a module L. This is a minimal free resolution of length 1 of L. Okay, just focus on this part now. So that says that the projective dimension of L is 1. Yeah, this project dimension of L is 1. But you see, depth of R is 0. If depth is 0, then the maximal ideal is an associated prime. Depth of R is 0. So this means maximal ideal is an associated prime, where Z is an element of R. Okay. So Zm is 0. There is a non-zero element in the ring which kills the maximal ideal. That's the meaning of depth of R is being 0. Okay. And I have a module of finite of projective dimension 1. And this is a minimal free resolution. Now, minimal free resolutions are those free resolutions where the entries of the matrix, which describes the maps in the minimal free resolution, they are in the maximal ideal. Because at every stage, we map a free module of smallest rank, okay, when we construct the minimal free resolution. So this says that phi g mg this Fg injects into Fg minus 1 because this is the end of the free resolution, and this Fg will be contained in m times Fg minus 1. Yeah. But you see, now you look at Z kills M. So ZFG contained in Zm, Fg minus 1, but Zm is 0. So a non-zero element in the ring kills this free module. This is a contradiction. Free module, I mean, cannot be killed by a non-zero element in R. By freeness. Okay. So therefore, our assumption that project dimension was positive was wrong, and therefore project dimension of M is 0. So M is free, and therefore depth of M is depth of R, and that is equal to 0, and we are done in this case.
Sir, please explain the part why Fg is contained in MFG minus 1.
This is the property of minimal free resolution. Minimal free resolution can be constructed in two ways, that you take a module and the map a free module of rank equal to minimum number of generators of the module, right? And then take the kernel and take minimal generators of kernel and map a free module of same rank as the minimal generators of the kernel and keep doing this. That's how we construct minimal free resolution. But Nakayama lemma, using Nakayama lemma, one can then give an equivalent characterization that minimal free resolutions are those, so that the matrices which represent the maps between the free modules in the minimal free resolution have entries in the maximal ID.
Yes, I remember. Yes.
Okay. So this last map 5G in the minimal free resolution, as this matrix has entries in the maximal ideal. So 5G will map Fg into m times Fg minus 1, right?
Yes.
Right? Fg injects into Fg minus 1, so it will be into m times Fg minus 1.
Right.
And Z kills m, and so Z kills Fg, but the non-zero element cannot kill in free module.
Okay.
Yeah, any other doubt? So we have taken care of the base case when depth of R is 0. So now let us assume that depth of R is positive. Okay. So now let depth of R is positive. We will take two cases. Depth of M is positive and depth of M is 0. Okay. So first let us take the case when depth of M is positive. So depth of M is positive, depth of R is positive, both are positive, and Rm is a local ring. Since both these depths are positive, that says that maximal ideal is not an associated prime of M, and it is not an associated prime of R. Okay, otherwise, it will only consist of zero divisors. So both these depths are positive, so M is not an associated prime of module as well as of the ring. So by prime avoidance lemma, this is a finite set. Both these sets are finite sets. So by prime avoidance lemma, I can find an element X in M, so that X is M regular and R regular. It is regular on M as well as R. So therefore, depth of M mod xm is equal to depth of M minus 1, and depth of R mod xr is depth of R minus 1. Let's think about projective dimension of M mod xm. Yeah. Projective dimension of M mod xm. Anybody can guess what is the projective dimension of M mod xm? How it is related to projective dimension of M? Navakumar? Projective dimension of M mod xm. First of all, is it finite? I mean, only projective dimension of M is given to be finite. Yeah. How can you see that M mod xm has finite projective dimension over R mod xr? You have to produce a minimal free resolution, right, of finite length?
Yeah.
Where is it going to come from? Can I get a minimal free resolution of M mod xm from that of M?
If we no, but percentage by xm. So not getting any idea.
Omkar Javdekar.
Yeah, we can tensor the minimal projective resolution of M with R mod X.
And that I did that, right? In the beginning, I did that. I proved that I can tensor with R mod X if X is regular on all the elements in a regular sequence of length at most 4. Then when I tensor with R mod X, I again get an exact sequence, right? So your answer is correct. So take a minimal free resolution of M and now use the fact that X is R regular and M regular. Both these were required in that lemma I proved in the very first class. And then when I tensor with R mod X, I get an exact sequence. So if you tensor a free module of finite rank with R mod X, I will get a free module of finite rank over R mod X. So this is free over R mod X. F1 over XF1, F0 over XF0, M over XM to 0. This is a minimal free resolution of M mod XM. So what does it say about its project dimension? Project dimension of M mod XM over R mod XR is the same as project dimension of M. Okay. We are applying induction on depth. Depth of R is positive, so depth of R mod XR is less than depth of R. So by induction hypothesis, the projective dimension of M mod XM plus over R mod XR plus depth of M mod XM, okay, is equal to depth of R mod XR. Okay, but now we have calculated project dimension M mod XM. It is project dimension of M. Depth of M mod XM is 1 less than depth of M. Depth of R mod XR is 1 less than depth of R, and that implies that project dimension of M over R plus depth of M is equal to depth of R. Yeah? Is this clear? Is this clear to everyone? Okay, so what is left? We haven't proved. What is left? What case is left? Can you tell me what case is left?
Depth of M is equal to 0.
Yeah, depth of M is 0. So depth of M is 0 and depth of R is positive. Okay. All right. So here depth of M plus projected dimension of M is supposed to add up to depth of R. Depth of R is positive, depth of M is 0. So we expect the projected dimension to be positive, right? Yeah. So if depth of M is 0, we want to show that the projective dimension of M is equal to depth of R. Yeah. Right. So we'll show that project dimension of M is exactly depth of R. Depth of R is positive. Yeah. So to show that project dimension, to calculate the project dimension, I must take a minimal free resolution and calculate the length. So start constructing a minimal free resolution. So take the kernel of this first map itself, because I'm not sure whether M is free or not, right? But there will be some kernel, and the kernel could be 0. We don't know that. In any case, I get an exact sequence. So consider this exact sequence. This L is called the first module of syzygies. First module of syzygies. First syzygy module. So I have this exact sequence. Depth of M is 0. This depth is 0. And this depth is positive. Okay. Then what is the depth of L? And what is the projective dimension of L? Can you tell me projective dimension of L at least? Anybody? Projective dimension of L?
So 1 less than the projective dimension of M.
Right, right. So I have minimal free resolution. L is the kernel. So project dimension of L will be exactly 1 less. Yeah. So that is clear. Project dimension L is project dimension of M minus 1. What about depth of L? What should I prove about depth of L so that formula is done?
Depth of R minus 1.
Depth of L. Depth of M is 0, you see. And depth of R is positive. So let us calculate the depth of L. Yeah. So to calculate the depth of L, I can apply the depth lemma, but let me give a direct argument. I need to show that depth of L is exactly 1. I will prove depth of L is exactly 1. I need to show that x to 1 k L is not equal to 0 and harm k L is 0, right? That will imply depth of L is 1. Once depth of L is 1, then I have a module of finite projective dimension whose depth is positive. So by the previous case, we know the formula. Depth of L plus project dimension of L is depth of R. But depth of L is 1. Project dimension of L is project dimension of M minus 1. Yeah. So this is equal to, this cancels, and it is equal to depth of R. That's what we want to prove. Okay, so it amounts to proving that in this exact sequence, depth of M is 0 and depth of R is positive, then depth of L is always 1. Okay, so we need to calculate these X modules, and we have a long exact sequence of X modules. Yeah. So take the long exact sequence. Once we have a short exact sequence of modules, there is a long exact sequence of X modules. So I have this exact sequence, Rn to M to 0, and then take x1 or x2 of k L. Okay, x2 of KL, and then x2 k Rn to x2 km, right? And it will where does this sequence start? It starts with harm, right? So 0 to harm KL to harm KRN to harm KM, okay, and then it will go to X1 KL, X2 1 KRN to X1 KM. We just need this. Yeah. Now R has positive depth. So depth of Rn is positive. So what can you see about hom KRN? Hom KRN. That direct sum of, I mean, this is depth of Rn is positive. So hom KRN is what? 0.
It is 0.
And that says that hom KL is 0. Right? Now I need to prove that this X1 of KL is non-zero. If X1 of KL is 0, yeah, what will happen? Suppose X1 of KL is 0. What will happen in this long exact sequence? Hom KRN is 0, X1 KL is 0. So this module hom KM is trapped between these two 0 modules, right? So that will say hom KM is 0. Hom KM is 0. Is this true?
No, depth of M is 0, so home cannot be 0.
Yeah, depth of M is 0. So hom KM is non-zero. There's a contradiction. Yeah, so this is a contradiction to the assumption that X1 KL is 0. So X1 KL is not 0. And that says that the depth of KL is 1. And that finishes the proof. Our time is also finished. Any question on this? Several problems in the assignment I gave, they require use of Ostrander-Buxbaum formula, so that we will take up those problems in the next tutorial. That is next Saturday. Okay. Yeah. So understand the proof. It is an interesting proof. Involves several ideas. And so understand this proof, and then there are 4 or 5 problems in tutorial sheet which depend on use of Ostrander-Buxbaum formula. So you attempt those problems after understanding the proof. Okay, so next time I will do the catenary property of Cohen-Macaulay rings, universal catenary property of Cohen-Macaulay rings. That will take some 15 minutes. And then begin our journey of Gorenstein rings. This is a very, very special class of Cohen-Macaulay rings. The other special class is regular local rings, and those will now be taken by Professor Sengupta. He will prove many important properties of regular local rings. In particular, he will prove that it is a UFD. Localization of regular local ring is a regular local ring. So that would have proved that regular rings are Cohen-Macaulay rings. So now we have some examples of Cohen-Macaulay rings. After doing all this theory, that polynomial rings over field are Cohen-Macaulay, power series ring are Cohen-Macaulay. I can go mod a regular sequence, Cohen-Macaulay property is preserved. I can localize. Yeah, I can take polynomial ring or power series ring. So this becomes a huge class. Okay. But the natural rings are power series ring and polynomial rings. And I will show next time that there is another natural class of rings called rings of invariants. And I will show that they are Cohen-Macaulay rings. So that will give another very large class of Cohen-Macaulay rings. Okay. I'll also show that 2-dimensional integrally closed rings are also Cohen-Macaulay. Okay, next time. So next time I'll do examples and enlarge our set of examples of Cohen-Macaulay rings. Okay, so any doubts, further doubts before we break?